Hello and welcome to EdSpace, where we discuss some of the week's top news headlines with Mint's editor, Sukumar Ranganathan. Welcome to the show, Sukumar. Moody's this week has said that India is expected to grow at 7% from 2014. They've also given a thumbs up to the annual budget. What's your take on this?
See, it's obviously good news, right, after a lot of bad news, especially from the credit rating agencies. Because I think the government had gotten into this state where it was believing that the credit rating agencies had something for it and something in for it. So I think it's a positive move, but to me it's also slightly optimistic, right? Because if you look at where the economy is right now, and if you look at this year is 5%. Some people say marginally more than 5%, but roundabouts. And from there to 7%, it's quite some growth. Now, we all know that next year will obviously be better than this year. Yeah. But how much better, we still don't know. But the bigger problem is really that structurally, thanks to supply-side issues, or what are called supply-side issues or capacity issues, the Indian economy can't grow faster than 7%. And if you forcibly try to grow it faster than 7%, which you can do in a variety of ways, inflation gets out of control. It gets overheated. So I think a lot of supply side issues, capacity issues need to be addressed between now and 2014 for us to be able to think in terms of 7% and then of course 8, 9%. So it's a good statement, no doubt, from Moody's. It's very positive from the India point of view. But for it to be achieved, I think it assumes that the government will continue to do things that it has been doing, because if you look at all the things that has happened since September, since Mr. Chidambaram took over as the finance minister especially, most of these things have been very, very focused on improving the fiscal situation, addressing structural issues that we have. And if he continues in the same vein, if the government continues in the same vein, I'm sure at some point in time they will also start addressing issues related to the supply side, issues related to capacity. But the Moody's projection seems to sort of assume that these things will happen automatically. To me, the big problem is that right in the middle of it, you have the elections that will come in. So it no longer is just a question of knowing what the right thing to do economically is, but the political cost of doing so. And that's something that we need to look at.
You spoke about optimism. Now, Air Asia, its venture was cleared by the FIPB this week. I was just wondering, what makes Air Asia so bullish about the Indian market? Because that is again a vote of optimism, in a way.
That's right, and of course, you haven't asked me that question, but I think I need to start with that. I'm very surprised at the speed at which this proposal has been cleared. I think you can attribute it to two things. One, you can attribute it to the hunger that this government has to show that it is pro-business and that it's pro-investment, which is brilliant. The second thing, I think it speaks a lot about the kind of goodwill that Ratan Tata still enjoys in this country and especially in the political circles. Because we all know that it's not a group that believes in crony capitalism. It doesn't do the kind of things that various other people are willing to do to get a clearance. So to me, these are the two real lessons from that. You look at the aviation sector in India, it's a very interesting scenario. Some of the airlines aren't doing well. Some have gone bust. One, of course, is in suspended animation, which is Kingfisher, and I think it should go bust because I think it's dragged on for enough time. Vijay Mallya has cried wolf enough times about foreign investors and reviving the airline. The banks have cried wolf enough times about recovering loans. I think it's time someone pulled the plug, and life went on. But there is space, clearly, for more airlines to operate. And if you look at what's happened to prices, for instance, ticket prices, especially during the peak season, have really soared. And the reason they've soared is because you don't have enough capacity in the market. And I think if you have a good, by good I mean an efficient low-cost carrier, which doesn't believe in the frills. It's not a full-service airline, more like Indigo, sticks very, very closely to a very pure low-cost model. I think you can make a go of it, and I think that's the Air Asia model, right? Then that's what they're betting on. That they will be able to make a dent in the market by just focusing on that, and that it's a growing market. Any growing economy is a growing market. There is spare capacity. None of the existing airlines are really huge, right? You have big players. You have reasonably big players, but it's not as if there's a behemoth. It's not as if there's an 800-pound gorilla that's occupying this room. So it's not. Some have found their feet. Some are in the process of finding their feet. So I think it's the right time for them to get in.
How do you look at the way Ratan Tata has been, the way he's played out in this whole thing? Because he seems to be very interested in this project. So how do you look at his role?
He's obviously, everyone knows that the man is personally interested in airlines. He's a trained pilot. And the fact that if you look at Tony Fernandez's tweets, it's very clear that he has a very warm relationship with Tata. So obviously that was the point of entry. The two of them got talking. It's very difficult to do business with people you don't like, right? And so you need to have that personal relationship at some level, and I think that personal relationship is there, at least from Tony Fernandez's tweets. It seems that relationship is there. So obviously he's the person who's built this. Ratan Tata is the person who's built this relationship with Air Asia. He's tried once before to get into this business through Singapore Airlines, something that didn't happen. So he knows enough about the sector. And so his involvement, I'm sure he brings a lot to the table. And of course, then there's the regulatory aspect. It's always easy to do business with the government if you have someone like Ratan Tata fronting this whole thing, because it becomes so much easier. He has a certain stature, which to my mind, even some of the cabinet ministers are in awe of. So I think that helps.
So actually, Ratan Tata hasn't actually hung up his boots. If you
look that's at right. He hasn't really retired, right? Because you don't retire and then get actively involved in doing something which is as intense as this.